I think that's a fair, legit question we were kind of toying around with towards the end of the show there. The question I am more interested in is if Jimmy Butler and the Heat beat the Milwaukee Bucks and Giannis, and then Giannis comes down here, pulls a KD, can't beat him, so I'm going to join him, and he comes down here, whose team is it? Okay? Because I think that it should still be Jimmy Butler's team based on the fact that he beat Giannis the year before. So I think it should still be Jimmy's team. And perhaps Richard Jefferson was right that maybe Giannis is a Scottie Pippen.
Yeah, there's a couple questions here. It's not do you want him? It's more do you need him, right? And if you don't need him, then what's the price you get him at, especially if he's more of a beta than an alpha, as Stugatz is saying.
So the Heat would end up having the best Scottie Pippen of all time and the worst Michael Jordan of all time.
Wow. But the best Horace Grant of all time, and bam. I mean, incredible.
Okay, so this is a legitimate...
Dan, you're doing this thing where you're just dismissing this. Like, there's no conversation to be had about Giannis maybe being not as dominant in the playoffs?
The thing I'm dismissing, Chris, because Giannis is a better player by a good amount than Jimmy Butler, is these narrative-based conversations that you guys are having after 2 games of overreaction where you're agreeing with Richard Jefferson that a guy who is not only MVP of the league, but also defensive player of the league is a number 2.
Regular season.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
He's not a number 2, okay? He is the young player everybody in that league would want to build around because he's better than everyone else at basketball. And I can't dispute for you that the Heat have been able to slow him and make him look like not an MVP, but they're throwing their whole team at him to do it. So, yes, what you guys are arguing about is ridiculously silly.
Now, the natural next question then is, Dan, which you kind of lobbed it up to. Jordan, Pippen, and Grant versus Butler, Giannis, and Bam. Who do you have?
Right. Who do you have? Who would you rather have?
I mean Giannis had 29 and 14 yesterday. Mm-hmm. I mean, he wasn't bad yesterday, although second straight game.
They lost.
Second straight game where he has the worst plus-minus in the starting lineup, and it was weird. They made their runs in that game with him on the bench, and you were kind of happy when he came back in.
But couldn't you make the argument with this NBA that late in games, especially in the playoffs, you need a guy that can create his own shot? And these instances where Giannis is like dribbling it down the court and he just like is turning on the motor, like that doesn't work late in a playoff game.
Chris, I don't believe anyone's disputing what you're saying there. I think that the reason that so many people pick the Heat over the Bucks is because they doubt the Bucks and Giannis about that. The ability to create a shot at the end of games becomes diminished when you aren't the three-point threat that some other people are. But I ask you guys, because at this point you'd rather have Damian Lillard somehow at the end of a game than Giannis, because you put him on the free throw line, and what's happened yesterday might happen because he's not a good free throw shooter. But I just think that as this game evolves, the idea that we're sitting here crushing Giannis Antetokounmpo at 6'10" for not having the range to be a 40% three-point shooter because of what Duncan Robinson and the Heat players are doing from three. The idea that you're making this request of an extraterrestrial, that he also has to be better from out there, is you're asking someone who was already without precedent to be even more unprecedented.
What's wrong with that? I mean, seriously, what is wrong with asking for more? There's always more in the tank. Listen, this was the same problem last year. This is the same reason they couldn't get to the finals last year. And you would think that Giannis would spend the entire offseason and the 3 months he had off before he had to come back to the bubble working on that shot. Working on the three. What's it working?
Why do you assume, first of all, it's amazing to me that you marvel.
I don't really care.
I don't understand how you, first of all, you specifically, your tombstone is going to say, I wanted more. Like your tombstone is going to be greed. I want more from everybody. I want them to do more. But the idea that you assume that Giannis hasn't been working on a jumper is fairly amazing.
Well, I mean,
have
you seen him? I mean, have you seen the J?
Yeah, he's very clearly working on his jumper. It just hasn't quite developed. This is not This is not unprecedented. Outside of Tim Duncan, most of the greats have to face adversity and conquer a mountain. Sometimes it takes them one elimination in the playoffs. Sometimes it takes multiple. This is just a step in the evolutionary process of one of the more highly evolved individuals we've ever seen play.
I just love the position that Stugotz can put himself in, where if you try to do it Kevin Durant's way, that's no good. But the reason Kevin Durant tried to do it his way is specifically because of what Stugotz is now putting on Giannis. Oh, what? You're unprecedented? Be unprecedented more. Be more unprecedented. It's why the last 10 years guys have left those teams. That's what LeBron was under, Stugotz. You breathing on his neck. More. And so he's like, never mind. But then when they do it like Durant, you're like, not that much more. Please turn down the more. I want you to do less now. Less.
Right. Well, no one's ever done it like Durant. I mean, no one's ever done that, where they join a team that's already historically good, an historical player. I've never questioned how good Durant is, but no one's ever done it like Durant.
Well, I hope you, for once, remain consistent, because if the Miami Heat eliminate Giannis, and if he leaves either via free agency or Milwaukee realizes, he's going to walk, let's trade him, and he comes to Miami.
Yeah.
You got to crush him for the same reason.
I will. None of them count. Seriously. Do it in Milwaukee or don't do. There are two types of people in the world, okay? There are Damian Lillards and there are Kevin Durants, okay? Mm-hmm. Kevin Durant's find the easy path. You can't beat him. You join him. Damian Lillard, okay? He stays right where he is, stays put. He'll have some big moments, some memorable moments. He'll make it to a Final Four. They'll never win a championship, but he's loyal. He stayed with his city, okay? And he has the respect of his players and his peers, something that Kevin Durant does not have. I pulled everyone.
I'm sorry, I forgot the part where, to end debates, we just throw out on the table, but he has the respect of his peers. He can wear that on his finger?
Yeah, you can wear that. There actually is
so for
a
rings plus
ring.
minus, plus minus, you could say, actually, he has a respect of his peers, so that counts.
Yes, and Lillard does. That's obvious. Listen, it might not be visible to the eye, but we all know that it's there, okay? It might not even be a piece of jewelry, a ring, but we all know that he has the respect of all of his peers, all of his players, including, I think C.J. McCollum even spoke about this with me one time. I love Damian Lillard because he just stays put. We might not win it all, but we're going to die trying. And that's what Kevin Durant needed to do. Seriously.
He needed to die trying in Oklahoma
I think
City.
CJ was being a bit too extreme there.
Yes.
But,
do you ever get tired of staking out every available position?
No.
Okay. Because I really don't know the proper way to win.
There is no way.
Well, no, you said it's Damian Lillard's way, which is losing. The proper way.
But he has respect. Yes.
The proper way to win is to lose.
It's to stay put and lose. That's how you win. Yes.
Okay. Yes. I just went like I understand that the optimum thing is to stay put and win. But absent that, Stugotz claims all the other positions are worthy of criticizing, except Damian Lillard out in the first round.
Western Conference Finals a year ago.
I know, but this year, Damian Lillard out in the first round is maximum winning. No one, in fact, at the end of the season, whoever it is that wins will finish second place to Damian Lillard in terms of winning because he died trying and he failed to get
No one's won more this year than Damian Lillard. Even the winner.
You don't get to hold up he appeared in a Western Conference Finals, especially when he gets swept out of
You do if you stay put. That's it. And the best teammate they ever give you is C.J. McCollum. That is how you win, Mike. I'm telling you.
Well, here's the thing that's great about Stugotz is that whatever form of winning he's now giving Damian Lillard for making to the Western Conference Finals, he refuses to give to Melo for doing the same thing and Chris Paul for doing the same thing. Both of them
reach. Chris Paul had to join the Rockets to make a Western Conference Finals, and then join James Harden. Right. He didn't stay put. And they finally had a Game 7 against team in the NBA Finals, and he stayed put. He just stayed at home.
With the show being shorter now nationally, we didn't give Stugotz any time to figure out exactly what piece of real estate he was going to stake out, considering James Harden made a major play to actually have his team advance. But Chris Paul, who also had a very strong quarter, had a moment where he lost the ball. We didn't get your take on the epic Game 7 last night.
Yeah, it was Chris Paul's fault. It was going to be James Harden's fault until he made the greatest dodgeball move in the history of basketball. And by the way, James Harden, okay, I am telling you right now, if he can't get it done this year, I am going to light him up, okay? Because that team is good enough to win an NBA championship, especially in the bubble when you take fans out of it. But it was Chris Paul. Chris Paul always does this. He'll give you that game, the stat line looks good. If you rewatch the last 30 seconds of that game where they needed Chris Paul to want the ball, to shoot the ball, to make a move to the basket, Chris Paul was sprinting away from the action. I'm sorry. He is not looking for the ball in big-time moments to hit big-time shots. Never has, and he never will.
Oh, that's just not true, Stugotz.
In a Game 7, it is.
Stugotz.
Maybe he'll give you a big Game 6, but never in a Game 7.
Stugotz.
He didn't even show up to one. I mean,
He did seem more interested in calling a timeout than taking a game-winning shot.
Thank you. Thank you.
Okay. I mean, because he's looking over there, and who's there? Lou Dort. Like, okay,
Hey,
guys.
Lou Dort was the best player on the court.
Okay, very good.
On the Dort.
All right, the Dort was the best player on the court until the very end when James Harden summoned all his defensive prowess to end the season
I just can't get that Dort joke
of the great Lou Dort. Unbelievable. It's just impossible game of whack-a-mole with Stugotz. It's not possible to win. He will always win by just throwing a bunch of gibberish in your face with no regard for consistency.
My joke just keeps falling. Just Dort. What?
That one's stolen from Mike Golick Jr., who says that OKC came up just Dort last night.
That's a good one.
Yeah, it was also not an original take. Freezing Cold Takes actually put out that everyone, actually, quite literally, everyone in a divided America had that joke on Twitter.
Really?
That stinks,
Yeah.
right?
You may not even remember it. Dan, you had that joke on Twitter.
I did not remember doing that, but now that you mention it, I do now remember doing that.
Quantifiable. Everyone here made that joke at the same time.
Can someone help me with a better name in terms of funny in the NBA right now than Lou Dort?
No. No, I can't. That's the funniest name I've ever heard. It's ridiculous.
Stugotz was going to win either way last night, right? As the perpetual critic, as the perpetual hater, as the guy. Man, that was the game for you last night. If you're someone who loves to disparage the Hall of Fame credentials and heart of someone who's accomplished, that was the game, because at the end of the
Chris
game.
Paul?
Well, if it wasn't Chris Paul, it would have been James Harden. James Harden was terrible last night.
Oh, he was awful right up until he was great. I mean, defensively, you know?
James Harden is not going to get this is the beauty of last night's moment where that game is for the critic. James Harden is not going to get his memorable playoff moment from playing defense on Lou Dort. Like, he's not going to get, and not on that side of the ball. Like, he had a moment where he blocked the shot, but I'm talking about when people go, when the ledger of Stugotz, when Stugotz keeping the ledger of your accomplishments, great playoff moments, he's going to give it to Damian Lillard in the first round before he gives it to James Harden because of defending Lou Dort.
You want to talk about a playoff moment? Mark Jones had that when he said Chris Paul was born for moments like these, and then Chris Paul immediately loses the ball, and then after James Harden makes the first defensive play I think any of us can ever recall, Mark Jones screams, "Never talk about James Harden's defense ever again." I think I'll talk about it some more.
I think that Mark Jones was going for, you correct me if I'm wrong, because when he was talking about Chris Paul, I thought he was pointing out that Chris Paul in the previous interview done postgame after Game 6 had said, "I live for these moments."
Yes, which is hilarious because Chris Paul had a little bit of self-awareness, and the soundtrack to that immediately happening before Chris Paul loses the ball, and if a player from the opposing team would have just been standing in the right place, would have been a turnover. He's actually quite lucky James Harden made the play that he did, because we'd be blaming Chris Paul.
You guys know that the end of these games, we do this all the time. There are a million plays during the game, and we hyper-analyze the last couple of plays, and it becomes about this call from the ref or this moment that someone rose up to or didn't rise up to, and therefore they're mentally frail. What do you do with the general end of game situation that Jimmy Butler farted out there? Like, what do you do as the clutchiest of clutch guys?
I wait to see who won and who lost, and then, I don't really care about what Jimmy Butler did because they won the game. I mean, that's it. I mean, why pay attention to all the faults and all the mistakes and all the sloppy play? Jimmy Butler was awful, but you know what? W. I mean, that's it.
Like the actual play call with 4 seconds
Who cares?
left. Look, Spoelstra was always reputed to be a guy that drew up great plays out of timeouts. He did one in that game, but at the end of games, his default is always the superstar is going to win it for me.
Let me ask Chris and Billy this question. Guys, 5 seconds left in the game. Now that Jimmy Butler, you're seeing it happen nationally. They were just feeding the narrative last night so much of, this guy he eats up these moments. And then he fell out of bounds and just launched the ball in the air toward his own basket.
Sick dime.
And so I'm actually curious. 5 seconds left. Jimmy Butler's rising up for a jumper. Do you trust him? Like, do you guys actually think? Because I don't totally trust him on jumpers. He's been pretty terrible shooting the basketball this year. Yes or no, guys? Do you think that because he's the clutchiest of clutchy guys, even though he hasn't actually won late in the playoffs with any of this clutchness, yes or no, he's going up for a jumper, 5 seconds left? Do you want it the way you want Dragic shooting that? Do you want it the way you want Duncan Robinson shooting it? The way that you want Tyler Hero shooting it?
After game one, yes. When I drew up the play in my living room during that timeout, I said, you got to go Jimmy Butler here. And they did.
Yeah, I want Jimmy Butler doing it because the guys that you mentioned, maybe outside of Tyler, but he's a rookie. Duncan Robinson's not going to generate his own shot in that spot. As great as Goran's been, I don't have ultimate faith that he's going to be able to put a shot up. If you put a shot up, especially in that game where everyone was getting fouled on their jump shots, you have a shot of something happening. So Jimmy's the guy that's most likely to at least put it up.
Forgive me, I didn't mean to say that I start the offense with a guy. What I'm saying is if you give me the choice, Jimmy Butler's about to create for himself and put up a shot, or Jimmy Butler's about to create for someone else on that team to put up a shot, I have more confidence in the second scenario than I do in the first.
Yeah, I do too, but Spo's always done that, and with 4 seconds, and also we have the result. Like, it worked out, and considering the context of the game, it was a foul, so I don't know if 4 seconds is enough to draw something up. Would I prefer a wide open look from Duncan Robinson? Yes, even though it doesn't really seem like he's cut out for this quite just yet. And Ramona Shelburne had a very interesting column about Duncan Robinson's own imposter syndrome, and maybe some of that is playing out a little bit right now. He's getting played a little bit differently, but I mean, you sign this guy for those moments. Dwayne Wade recruits him. The whole Marquette connection, he is absolutely the alpha. We can debate whether or not he's a superstar, but in terms of that team, everyone recognizes he's the guy. So he needs to be the guy in that spot.
Billy, what level of confidence do you have Jimmy Butler rising up at the end of the game to take, the only thing that you can get at the end of the games when you're creating your own shot tend to be these 18-footers, whether it's Kobe or Carmelo or LeBron or any, these shots are not at the rim. There's somebody who is going to be it's going to look like Kawhi Leonard the way that he eliminated Philadelphia. You're not going to get close to the rim. They're going to make sure of it. What level of confidence do you have Jimmy Butler end of game shooting a long-range jumper, creating his own shot, Billy?
37% confidence, Dan. I didn't think he was going to make it. Honestly, I thought they were going to overtime, but my game's also really delayed, and every game that I've seen this season has been delayed for whatever reason because of how I'm watching it. And I saw everybody tweeting 2-0, 2-0, 2-0, 2-0, and I'm like, well, I guess they won. And then I saw him throw the ball up in the air, and it almost went into the 3, and then I saw Goran just throw the ball up in the air, and I'm like, what's happening? How did they win this game? Because it seems like they're about to blow this.
What a terrible way to experience that game. Why are you checking Twitter if you know your TV's behind everybody's?
Well, no, that's the thing. Is that the 2-0, everyone just assumed the game was over because there was like 20 seconds left and everyone's like, oh, this game's over, game's over. And I'm like, wait, did I miss something because I'm behind? Or like, what's going on right now exactly? Did everybody jump the gun on this one?
So how was it really in real time for you? Were you actually behind the game by a little bit? I understand what you're saying about everyone jumped to the conclusion that the Heat had won, but I actually am someone who watches the game on delay often because I don't want
through the commercials.
Because I don't want to watch the commercials. But in those situations, I don't actually wait it out because there's too much noise actually in the streets, Stugotz. When the Heat win or something happens,
Right.
the decision, I get the information physically from the street beneath me before the game ends, so I want to watch it real time.
I mean, they should be inside right now practicing social distancing and all that good stuff. But anyway, regardless, we digress. I am telling you that Chris is right. Social media, Bill, you're doing it wrong. I left 151 last night. I thought the Heat had won the game. So I went outside to do something. Once you come back in and realize that it's a close game and you put it back on, I had to rewind the game. You got to stay off social media. You don't want to know the ending. I mean, I don't know. The terrible strategy by you. Terrible.
Well, the thing is I was searching to see if anyone else did the Jimmy Butthead thing before I did, because I didn't want to steal the Jimmy Butthead joke if someone else had already done it. And I was annoyed with him because I started watching this show called Blown Away on Netflix, which is this glass blowing show from a couple of years ago. Yeah. And I got all the way until like the season finale, and then I had to stop to watch the game. And I'm like, I just want to know who wins the glass blowing competition. And then, of course, the game ended late, so I fell asleep. And I don't know. I know who won because it's one of those things, where you fall asleep and you wake up like at the end of a movie or the end of a show and you see how it ends, but you have no idea how it happened. You're like, why couldn't I have woken up 5 minutes later and I just wouldn't have seen how this ended? Because now I'm going to have to go back, but I don't know who the winner is. It's, one of those.
Yeah. Stugotz, what kind of things do you have to do outside at 9:45 p.m. at night?
Yeah, that's just
Jeez.
Did you know Geico's now offering an extra 15% credit on car and motorcycle policies? That's 15% on top of what Geico could already save you. So what are you waiting for? Your dentist to actually believe you?
And you're flossing every day.
Absolutely.
Great. And you're cutting down on your sweets?
Of course.
Wonderful. Then I don't even need to look in there.
Great. See you in 6 months.
There's never been a better time to switch to Geico. Save an extra 15% when you switch by October 7th. Limitations apply. Visit geico.com for details. October 7th. Limitations apply. Visit geico.com for details.